let's say a few words. All right, Patricia Callan Award for Support and Promotion of Education is named in honor of the first woman president of the NLTA. It was established in 2007 to recognize individuals or groups outside the K-12 school system for their outstanding contribution to teachers and the teaching profession. Each recipient of the Patricia Callan Award receives a print of an original piece of artwork entitled The New School. This painting was commissioned by the NLTA from artist Ian Sparks, who is a retired teacher. The original is on display in the NLTA building. Grace Hollett is the recipient of the 2025 Patricia Callan Award. She is a lifelong educator, advocate, and community leader, celebrated for her deep commitment to public education, gender equity, and human rights. As the 2025 recipient of the Patricia Callan Award, she is recognized for her exceptional contributions to the teaching profession and broader social progress. Born on Flat Island in Monte Vista Bay, Grace built a distinguished career in education as a teacher, department head, NLTA staff member, and active leader within the association, serving 8 years as provincial executive and chairing numerous committees focused on gender equality, political action, and member engagement. Her advocacy extended nationally and globally through her leadership with the Canadian Federation of University Women, where she served as national president and now as vice president of international relations. She has led efforts on early learning and childcare, promoted women's leadership, and represented Canada at the UN Commission of the Status of Women. A strong believer in grassroots. Action, Grace has helped grow the CFUW St. John's Great Big Book Sale into a major fundraiser for scholarships and outreach. She continues to advocate for equity in education and opportunities for women and girls, both at home and internationally. She's a proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, and continues to be active in advocacy, heritage research, and community life. So I now present the Patricia Callan Award to Grace.
Standing ovation for Grace.
Well, that's overwhelming. So, can I take, say, 3 minutes for me and 4 minutes for Pat?
The floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the other winners tonight of the various awards, and to say to the representative from Johnson's that I was once a group insurance trustee. I chaired, actually, group insurance trustees when the dental plan came in. So I'd like to thank you all for the honor of this award named for Patricia Callan. It's particularly meaningful to me as Pat was a friend and a colleague when we were on the provincial executive, advocating for education, students, and teachers. My children here tonight will tell you that political action work in education and advocacy in general has been almost total immersion and burning the candle at both ends. This award was the first of two big surprises I've had in the last couple of months. I'll get to the second one later. My volunteer life has centered on two organizations, NLTA and CFW, the Canadian Federation of University Women. First, NLTA, being president of the then 1,610-member St. John's branch, was fantastic, absolutely. I think the next year it got divided up into, I'm not sure, maybe 3 different groups. But when I had it, it was the one big group for St. John's and area. And fantastic too were the 8 years of provincial executive. So I'll tell you a few stories as I go along. One year prior to an election, my political action committee at the NLTA ran a weekend of political action for branch leaders. So they all came in to the Battery, which was the Battery Hotel. And we did training in how to work with others in the community and strategize and learn practical skills of running interviews with nominees or with LHAs, and in person or by phone, running a candidate forum, getting involved effectively. It was quite the weekend. We organized it, really enjoyed it, as did the branch members. And actually, one of the attendees there, whose name was Tom, later went into politics. And it was very complimentary about that weekend that NLTA had organized. So giving workshops was sort of happening all the time, serving on the negotiating team. And Roger will remember the night we stayed up all night at the NLTA building because the other team, the government team, was meeting in a building where they could see us, see the lights. So we said, we keep the lights on. They'll think we're working on the contract. They won't know we're really watching Roger's videos. Going to Vancouver for a feminist conference organized by CREOL, the Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women, and meeting the head of the Fraser Commission, who was starting hearings, he said, across Canada, from Vancouver to Halifax. Needless to say, I reminded him that Halifax was not the end of the East Coast. And when I suggested that he change his schedule and come to Newfoundland. Now, the hearings that he was having were on pornography and prostitution. Not quite my topic. However, when I came back and talked to the executive, they agreed that they would write the Fraser Commission, which I think his name was Fraser, and suggest that he come to Newfoundland, and he agreed. So you know who ended up having to chair the committee. Chair the committee and do the research so that we could present. Well, in the process of that, one of our members' sons decided that he would go, at his mother's suggestion, and get some material for us to look at. None of us were game to go. So he went to a certain store on Harvey Road. I see other people know that store. what are you doing with that from that store? And he said, it's not for me, it's for my mother. As you know, because you're all here from branches, the provincial executive visits branches from time to time, particularly when there's a contract on the go. And at this point, one of my branches was St. Mary's. So one night, I had to go down to St. Mary's and to talk to the teachers. But we met, my husband, I must say my husband was driving the car, not me. But we hit some black ice and the car went across the road, over the embankment, tipped over, righted itself, and there we were. So I said, Harold, this is the time when, you know, the car explodes. If it's in a movie. It might happen. So I grabbed the briefcase with my NLTA overheads. Climbed out the window, crawled up the embankment, hitchhiked, got to a service station, called a taxi, called the police, and then I called Charlie Dillon down in St. Mary's, and I said, Charlie, I'm going to be late. So I said, you better serve them the tea and coffee now. Well, we weren't far on the St. John's at this time. So off we went in the taxi, and when we got there, we got a standing ovation. So I did my talk. Harold went out in the kitchen, as he usually did, with his Masonic book down at St. Mary's, and did his reading and study for something he had to do. So I'll tell you one story about a student, because my son Phil said, you know, by the way, I have 4 of my children here tonight. One got sick, but the others are here, and the twin, Peter and Philip, came to a lot of CFW, not CFW later, but at this point, NLTA events. So Phil said, you got to tell a student story. So again, we had a contract to sell, so I had to go to Belle Island this time. The ice was in, so I didn't much feel like flitzing across to Belle Island from Orchard Cove Road. You know what flitzing is? You jump on pads of ice. Oh, jeez. So I went to luxury and a 2-seater thing. So I said to one of the students who was hanging around after class, I said, well, we're going to have to go. And I said, why? And she said, Miss, if the plane sinks and you drowns, will we have to do fractions tonight? NLTA provided me with leadership experiences for later positions with the Canadian Federation of University Women. And although we have that long name, we're not connected to the university at all anymore, but we were formed in 1919 at the end of the war by groups of women who had formed into organizations within universities so as they could help women get jobs and promotions and get admitted to certain faculties. We still have the name, but we call ourselves CFW, just using the acronym. So, as it turns out, the CFW has many teachers, both retired and active. It's self-funded, political, but not partisan. An independent voice for advocacy, working to realize the potential of all women. Promoting public education. I was glad to see the sign outside on public education. lifelong learning, human rights, social justice, and peace. Peace is hard to come by in the world now, though. But this is for all. So although it's advocacy to realize the potential of all women, all these other things relate to all people. In fact, in my role as unofficial membership recruiter, I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to become members of the club. We do all kinds of interesting things. I mean, I'm into 4 book clubs, tap dancing, all kinds of committees. I do all the Zoom meetings for the club, and et cetera, et cetera. Policy development through resolutions advocacy to the federal government are action by national office. We have a national office staffed by 4 people, and they're really good. And our 90 clubs and our 6,700 members. When COVID was looming, we had to provide IT training for all our then 95 clubs so that they could carry on their work and not lose too many members and be strengthened to come back later. Advocacy for students is very big in this group, and we give $1 million every year to scholarships across Canada. St. John's Big Book Sale was mentioned. That's a big event. One year we had a snowstorm. CDC announced that despite the storm and everything else being closed, the Great Big Woman's Book Sale was going ahead. So this year it ran over, it ran over 2 days of selling. The third day everything was half price, so we gave them away to schools and students. And we cleared $65,000 on used books. I think I got my 4 minutes used up. I'm on past that. So when I was national president, that was 2017 to 20. We commissioned Diane Dodd to write a book of the organization called Our 100 Years. And we had just finished writing the 38 biographies for the national presidents. And I give credit to the St. John's branch for forming with me an editorial board under Faith Ballish to get them into shape, get these biographies into good shape. When we were doing the biographies and the book, we found that we didn't have the first names of many of the presidents. They were known as Mrs. Husband's name, husband's last name, or his initials. And it was quite a job to find their names. We did all kinds of work. We even had someone frolicking around a cemetery looking for a headstone. We knew where this woman had died, and we figured out where she must be buried. So I went and they found her first name. Wow. So if you read the biographies online, you'll see that they're given their real names. I said I had 2 surprises. The second surprise took place in March at a town hall meeting at the United Nations, given by Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who spoke of the pushback against gender equity. Several names were pulled from a list to speak, and suddenly I heard one, and I had no idea what I was going to say. So I told myself, look, last year you went to a funeral, and when you opened the brochure, when you got in church, you found you were doing the tribute. If you could do that, you could do this. So I did it. Afterwards, I viewed the UN reporting, to see what I actually said and how the Secretary General had responded. So the sessions, we gave sessions at the UN. We gave 2 sessions actually, one in partnership with Women Graduates USA, and that one was run by a subcommittee, because I have one big committee, international relations, and I have 5 subcommittees. So it means instead of going to one meeting, you go 6. So so Linda Coles from here, Dr. Linda Coles chairs that committee for me. So we presented 2 sessions at the UN, one on educating women and girls, advancing their empowerment and equality. And at that one of the international, we have international panelists usually from Canada, United States, and Mexico. And we had the Honorable, the Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Anne-Marie Elbrick went as a panelist, and so we were very pleased with that. And then that was the in-person workshop session that we gave. We also gave a virtual session, and for that one, we were very pleased that Deanna Hatcher from NLTA was one of our panelists, because the topic there was qualifications for employment of women migrating to North America. We wanted them their qualifications recognized, so Deanna was able to talk about what happens with teachers who come in as migrants. I want also to acknowledge that the previous year, Heidi Devlin from the Canadian Teachers Federation was one of our panelists, and we collaborate well with the Canadian Teachers Federation, as we do with NLTA, and we thank you both for that. So you can imagine our annoyance in the midst of all this preparation for these 2 sessions, which takes months. You can imagine our annoyance when in the midst of all this, along came a message from the U.S. government giving a warning to UN Women, which is dedicated to gender equity, that we were to avoid, and you know what it is, the DEI, equality. We were to avoid diversity, equality, and inclusion, and gender ideology. Now, recognizing that this is the UN session for gender equity. So, we said no. When you say no to a don't do something, it's a positive. 2 negatives make a positive. It's a positive thing that we're doing. We're not sure if we're going to get back anymore because when we got back, our president, and she and I had led the delegation to the U.S. To New York, just as we're going to lead one in Zambia. So when we got back, she wrote a statement of the things that we disagreed with that were happening in the U.S. So, as I said, we may or may not get back next year, but we're certainly going to give it a try. So I'd like to thank you again for the award and for the privilege of speaking about 2 incredible associations that bring people together towards a better future. The NLTA has supported me as much as I supported it with projects that advocate for and achieve better educational systems here in Newfoundland and elsewhere. My current work with CFW builds on achievements of women like Pat Cowan who worked to make a positive difference. And in closing, I'd like to say thank you to my family, who saw me sometimes, and have shown their support for encouraging me to be the version of myself that brings the most meaning. And by the way, membership is open in CFW.
sorry.